What's up, you guys? It's the Christmas season. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Well, even if I can't sing so well, I mean, the chills are here, the bells are ringing, the decorations are up, and even the weather is just getting in for Christmas. So, welcome to our second episode of the series What Christmas Means for Women. We already did our first episode, and if you didn't get to listen to that, you can probably pause this and then go there, because that was the introduction on why a woman. And then now today's episode is finding purpose. As I mentioned in some of the trailers, I hinted that most of these will actually be Bible centered, because we are trying to get inspiration from the Bible for our lives. And so this episode is majorly from the book of Psalms 139, verse 16. I'm going to put the verse down in the description section. Any verses that we refer to, we'll post them there so that you guys can go back and actually read. And so, as women, we probably think that, yes, you're already a woman, and whatever you're doing in your life, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever you are, what wakes you up, or what drives you, or rather, what is your life all about? So understanding your purpose. Finding your purpose actually begins with God, because already, as if you've read from that verse, Psalms 139, verse 16, it's clear that God is the one who sets our purpose. But then you may ask, so how do I know that this, whatever I'm doing, is actually what God purposed for me to do? And I'll actually give you just a short story time on what I believe my life purpose, even if I haven't really discovered it that much. So I took a course called Criminology and Security Studies for my degree. And when I was going for an attachment, I actually went to the probation department. If you don't understand what probation and aftercare service is, it's so there are three arms of the criminal justice system, right? There's the police, who are the law and order. There's the court, which is the justice system, and then there is the correctional department, which most people just know of the prison. But then apart from the prison, we actually have this probation and aftercare service, whereby you don't really have to go to prison. You can serve under probation, or if you go to prison, you may get an aftercare. Say you're too old, and you're approaching 70, 80, 90, and you're still in prison, and probably your character is improved, you have been rehabilitated well, you get into the aftercare service. So that's where we were doing. And for the most part, without revealing so much about what, those are, I feel like they are secret stuff. Not so much, but okay. So you're assigned, so this person is taken to court, right? After being processed by the police, they go to court. The magistrate, so we did pre-trial reports, so that you help the court know whether to take this person to prison or to put them on non-custodial sentencing, which is now probation. So there are times where, it feels as if you are the person who determines the fate of this one. And I mean, our task is not even greater than that of the judges, who actually literally judge the person, because it got to a point where I was conflicted about my course, and I was asking myself if this is really what I want to do. Because if I get into that professional field and do that for my job, it means that I will be determining somebody else's fate. And who am I to do that, right? Who am I to actually judge a person and say, okay, you deserve to go to prison, you deserve non-custodial sentencing. Like, sometimes there is miscarriage of justice where people don't, because you're not given everything from the, yes, you're given the charge sheet, so you know what they did, but really, what is the background story? Because even if you ask from their family, from the neighbors, as much as we try, I still feel like there's no full mandate. So I was in a situation of dilemma. And anyway, just because I'm really dragging it, finding your purpose begins with God. So it got to a point where I literally had to pray and say, okay, I've already taken this course. I'm on my 3rd year. I'm about to graduate. And I don't think I'm going to change my course and like start over, like probably doing something that I think is not putting me in a situation where I am determining somebody else's fate, like judging them for what they did. And it got to a point where I had to pray for clarity and just what I can do to help me find the will of God where I am. So there was a time that I was actually listening to a preaching by, I forget the name of the preacher. If I remember, I'll put his name down in the description section so you guys can also go listen to him. But he was speaking about just reflecting Jesus and living, like finding the will of God in whatever job you do, even if you are a policeman. And for the most part, we know that, like, no offense, but policemen have sort of a bad reputation out here. And some other professionals, for example, people in customer service, some of them have a bad reputation, but you can find the will of God and just see how you can serve God and reflect how Jesus is through your job without feeling guilty of probably what your job entails, right? Because most of the time, it's your job. You don't, because if you come there and try to make amendments, people will be like, oh, so you think you're the savior? We've been doing this all along. Come and try and do something new. It's like mocking you and provoking you. I don't know. So anyway, you can also look at the book of Colossians 1 verse 16, whereby we are made by God. We are made for God. So we need to understand that when you are in conflict in the situation of, okay, what should I do? For example, now in the situation of Mary, the woman, the mother of Jesus, she was conflicted because already she's engaged to Joseph. So how am I going to carry another person's baby, right? And so understanding that we are made by God for God. So just start with God, know God, and just love Him, to allow His will. How do we know the will of God? This is another question that maybe as women we ask ourselves. And knowing the mind of God. People say there's no one can understand the mind of God or what God thinks. But then again, the same Bible tells us that we can actually know the mind of God, because He Himself would reveal His mind to us. So that's how we get to know His will. moving on to another verse that you can actually read is Hosea 6 verse 6. And that says that know God and love him back, because God is the one who directs our paths. And when we pray, he makes things clear. For example, if you are in need of help with your career path, just like the story time that I gave you, maybe you need to buy a car, maybe you actually need money, and you are looking for an ethical job, because there's also times that, people say a job is a job provided I get money. But then there are these questions that people normally ask. So if I'm a Christian, should I be working at a club? If I'm a Christian, should I be working at should I be selling cigarette at my shop? People normally ask these types of questions. And I don't know which is the right answer. You can judge for yourself, but just pray to God and he will make things clear. Maybe you need to buy a house or to build a house. You need help with savings. But all these things, it's also important to remember that we are not going to take them to heaven. When you die, you leave all your things here, right? For example, there's this rich man who he had so much. He had harvested and his store was full, and so he sat down and told himself, sit, drink, and be merry. And that story was always funny back then when I was in high school. But when you actually think deeper into that, later on, Jesus comes, this, I don't know how did it happen. I don't want to twist the story, but he's being told to sell all his property because his soul, like, he's going to die. So he needs to sell all his property and probably give to the poor or something. It's in the book of Luke still. So you see, in such situations, as much as we are trying to find purpose in life, and most people tend to look at career, they tend to look at wealth and just being happy overall, there's also the aspect of your purpose in serving God and living for God, so that when that time comes and your time is up here on earth, you have an assurance of where you are going, or that you served God and what you did with your life, right? So the question of who we become in life will depend on how much wisdom you tap in from God, because he is the one who gives us wisdom. And so God actually puts us in this planet to develop our character and become like Jesus. It's upon us to become like Jesus, knowing that we go through all or almost everything that Jesus went through. For example, hardship, being lonely, being misunderstood, being tempted to be discouraged. Like, for example, when the mother of the two brothers, the sons of Zebedee, the mother went to Jesus and actually requested for Jesus to put his sons on the right hand and the left hand of Jesus. Jesus asked the two sons whether they were ready for what was being asked for, and they said they were ready. And so it's just like this question of becoming like Jesus, going through the hardship. Even Jesus himself asked them whether they were ready for, or whether they knew what they were getting themselves into. Finding purpose is building character. And as much as it's hard to admit and acknowledge, you have to go through some difficulty, because most of the time, not everybody will understand your purpose. You try to make it clear, but then it may seem as if you're trying to be selfish. You know how people say, new year, new me, fake friends, I'm going to slash out and cut out those fake friends. But at the same time, not everyone is a fake friend. Sometimes these people don't understand your purpose. So it's upon you to build your character. And in that process of building character, you need to understand who to associate yourself with. Do not be afraid to go towards your greatness if that is the path that has been shown to you. Be strong and just be gentle in how you communicate to people, because not everyone is a fake friend if your friendship ends. Sometimes the season of friendship is just over because, they no longer serve you as they used to before. And so it's time for you to move into new paths of life. And I mean, just as I said, building character is difficult. Can you imagine how we would be if we literally got everything that we asked for without working for it? Everyone would probably be selfish and so spoiled. But some of the most gentle and some of the most kind people, in the process of character development, what we nowadays call character development, some of the most kind people and the most humble people are those who have literally gone through the process and they know how it feels like and they have worked for it and they have literally gone through the character development. Now, here's the thing. Some people go through the hardship and, reach that high point of character development to the point where they don't want to associate with people who are also coming up. They feel like, I've been through it all, now it's my time to enjoy or something. You know what I'm trying to say, like what character development can do to people. Character development can make you better or change you for the worst. So in finding purpose, you also need to remember that if you don't have that purpose, if you don't have the goal of what is pushing you towards what you are doing, I feel like you can go to the selfish part of the outcome of character development. And tomorrow, actually, in our third episode, we're going to have inspiration from one fabulous lady who is my former schoolmate. And she is a model. She is in the beauty industry. Her name is Joanne. And she's actually going to tell us more about what the purpose of whatever she does is. And I feel like as we draw nearer to discovering this purpose, we need to find inspiration from more and more ladies. So you guys can actually go ahead and comment down on the comment section below what you think are some of the ways towards finding purpose or sticking to your goal, and we can help each other out. So the thing is to know that every problem has a purpose. Whatever you're going through, for example, now for Elizabeth, who was barren, for Anna, whose husband died after 7 years of marriage, there was a purpose, and these women discovered their purpose. For Anna, she discovered her purpose was worshiping God and literally serving God. That's why she decided to dedicate the rest of her life. And by the time Jesus was born, this woman was 84 years old. So you can imagine for how long she had been serving in the temple. So the problem, in the process of finding purpose, the problems we go through helps us to grow to be like Jesus. And I'm just going to highlight other verses because I can't read them directly from scripture. It's going to be copywritten. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13. And then we have Jeremiah 1 verse 5, which says that God knew us before we were born. And then God has a plans for us, Jeremiah 29 verse 11. And at times we feel insignificant and we probably discourage ourselves, but God's purpose for our lives actually reigns. So, for example, you know that sometimes there's something that is always at the back of your mind. For example, when you set a goal this year, there's something that keeps on coming up. Even if you don't end up achieving it at the end of the year, it still comes up almost every year. And I feel like the repetition is almost like what we can say it's a sign that that is your purpose, and you probably need to try it out and see what happens, right? And just for example, I'm going to list a few people here. We have Moses. Moses was a stammerer, and God had a purpose for him. But the first thing that he did, when I said that we feel insignificant and discourage ourselves, he was like, oh God, no, I can't speak properly. I have a problem with my speech. Exodus 4 verse 10. God knew that he had a purpose with this man. And when you are feeling less about yourself, for example, for me, I know I can speak for myself and say that I sometimes I feel less about myself when, say, even about doing this series. I had to really think and criticize myself and say, oh, am I really going to make it? And then I just had to approach the people that I needed to help me out. And I'm thankful to God that I'm actually getting responses, and I am going to pray and keep the faith that we're going to pull through with this series, and hope that we're going to touch the lives of so many women as we purpose to become women of purpose. I know, right? Then the next person is Sarah, the husband of the wife of Abraham. She conceived in her old age, and one of the things that she was questioning how she's going to be expectant and literally give birth to a baby at her old age. Genesis 18 verse 12. But the purpose of God reigns. God's purpose for our lives remains. And so, yeah. We have Gideon from Judges 6 verse 15. He felt of himself as though he was from a lesser tribe and just an insignificant person in society, trying to say, what can I tell people? Like, nitaambia nini watu, What can I tell people? Being such a small person, like, no one will listen to me, because sometimes we know this social status where the people who literally catches people's attention, probably just for who they are, for the family they come from. And then there's other people from small families who feel so insignificant. But literally, God had a purpose for Gideon's life, and God told him, just go. I will tell you what. We also have this David, who was the youngest son of Jesse. 1 Samuel 16 verse 11. He was so young, and the prophet, the father, Jesse, didn't think that his youngest son, who was just a shepherd taking care of sheep, would be chosen by the Lord for anointment. And so we know that he had several sons. Jesse had several sons. And when the prophet Samuel went to the house, to the homestead, Jesse is being told to produce the son so that God can choose, like Samuel, God can show Samuel the person that he has anointed. He had chosen for Samuel to anoint. And so he, brings out the first son, because you probably think that your firstborn son is the chosen one, or according to the father, probably he likes the firstborn son more, right? And so Samuel goes and tries to pour the anointing oil over the head, but the oil doesn't come out. And so it reaches a point where all the sons are out except for David. And so Samuel asks, like, are there any other sons in this house? So Jesse is like, oh yeah, I actually have one more son, but he's the youngest and he's just a shepherd, He's out in the fields taking care of sheep. And God is like, yes, that is the one I have chosen. So the purpose of God reigns in our lives. Let us not look down upon ourselves, thinking that, because most of the time, if you really think about it, it's not even the opinions of others that put us down. It is our own self-criticization. So the other person is Jeremiah, who felt like he was too young, and God told him, and he didn't know what to say. He's like, oh, nitaenda kuambia nini watu? I am too young. I don't know how to speak to older people. I don't know how to, relate. And so Jeremiah 1 verse 6, God is telling him that I will put words in your mouth and I will literally give you what to say, right? So trust your guts and just trust that, because it's your purpose in life. Trust what you want to do. Pray to God for that strength, for that motivation, for that clarity, and then go ahead. God does not see us as we are, but as we will become. Because there's this song that says, come as you are, he is waiting for you. Just come, no matter how much you have done against the will of God, and how much you have sinned, and how much you have fallen astray, or how much you have disobeyed the will of God, you have disobeyed the calling, and just come as you are. Even if you have been doubtful, just come as you are, because God is looking at what am I going, like, God knows your future, God knows your purpose, God knows the end goal, and he wants you to just come the way you are. When you're self-criticizing yourself, when you are doubtful of yourself, when you don't think you are enough, he says, come as you are, and he looks at what you will become. For example, for Jeremiah, he's one of the greatest prophets literally in the Bible. And if God saw him for somebody who doesn't know how to speak to other people, he wouldn't be where he was. He wouldn't have given hope to people. Even if he's called the prophet of doom, he wouldn't have spread the message of God to the Israelites, right, during that time of exile. And for David, he is the greatest king of Israel, and he served God with all his heart. And if it was for Jesse to choose which of his sons to pick to become the king of Israel, the next king of Israel, he wouldn't have chosen David. But God looked at David as who he will become and not who he was. He was literally the youngest son. And we also know of Joseph, who was also the youngest son, and he was his father's favorite. But for most people, they wouldn't have chosen him to, nobody knew that he was going to be the prime minister of Egypt, a foreign land, literally. And most of the time, we self-criticize and think of, oh, this is a new territory for me. Nobody knows me. I shouldn't speak out and try to and look as if I have come to take over. But if it is your time, speak up. Somebody will see you, and your purpose will come to life. Don't sit on your purpose. Now, living for God, you are not there to please others, but to please God. And I'm not saying that you come here prideful and saying, oh, it's not about you, it's about God. Yes, it's about God. So when it's about God, and we know that God is love, as much as you're living for God, live to show Jesus. Let Jesus be seen through you. And now, Psalm 139 verse 16, just to close out, because this is really getting long. And guys, I'm really enjoying this filming this episode, so I hope you guys are also enjoying through. I'm really getting in the moment. And Psalm 139 verse 16, I don't know, I really don't know if I can read the verse without getting copywritten. But it's just about how all your days had already been ordained even before you were born. Like the plan for your life, whatever you're doing, wherever you are in your life, even when you're questioning yourself, there's something in there. Find something where you are and live for God and let your purpose bloom. That's it, you guys. That has been really long. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but finding your purpose. I hope you guys have been blessed. Put your comments down below. If you feel like you have any topic that you want us to address, I may go ahead and actually post the topics that we are going to be talking about as the episodes keep on unfolding, so that if you wish for me to touch in some areas or to address a topic that you want to be addressed, you can tell me earlier on so that I can just, switch up the topics and accommodate you guys' ideas. Thank you so much for your help. Thank you so much for your support. Keep on sharing this episode to other people and tell them that more is coming, because we're only on our second episode. In our next episode, we're going to be having our guest, Miss Joanne, and you guys should be pumped to see her, to hear from her, and let's learn from each other, guys. That's it. Thank you so much, and bye.